Hello everyone, it is Zoe here with you today, and I wanted to share with you how I am going to go about editing this photo of Lexie and get a similar result to the result here that I got editing. So I edited this photo and created this finished item. So essentially trying to change the background and make it softer and bring the color right through to hide the background and the bright light. So we've got this bright background sky, and just to really make her pop and make the image sort of stand out. So we are going to do very similar technique to this image. There's actually obviously less sky and more green in the background, because I changed the position. I thought that this image was going to be too bright, so I moved her around. And yeah, so I thought that you might like to see the process, and let's get into it. To begin with, I'm going to just check my white balance. So I'm going to pop over here and click one of these. It feels a little bit too yellow, so I'm going to come in a little bit there. And sometimes it's on how you feel about it, the image as well. I think that's not too bad. I'm going to stick with that. We can see that I've got a little bit of, it's a little bit too dark in her nose and mouth. So I'm just going to slide that to the right there. And then before I do anything else, I'm going to actually start working on this background area. So I'm going to come in and we're going to create a mask using the Radial Mask. And I'm going to just sort of grab her head to begin with. And you can invert that, so either way that you want. I'm actually going to bring the exposure down because that's not what I'm really working on. So we might add a little bit of that later. But first things first, I'm going to come in with the brush. Actually, I'm going to put the exposure up just so I can see what I'm working on. I'm going to bring it in the brush and I'm going to go to erase. And just going to erase this section here because I do not want to change it. So the idea of what I'm going to be doing is just softening that background and making a few minor adjustments. So pretty happy with that. I also want to make sure that I'm just going to go to the plus. This is where I'm adding, and I want to make sure that we've got around her ears here. Just make sure that that is all in it. It doesn't have to be perfect for what we're doing. Just like so. All right, so let's just have a look at what I've captured there. So here, I see that it's got her head too much, so I'm just going to come into the erase. I'm just going to make sure that we're not going to change too much of her head. And you can work with like turning your to be able to view your mask on and off, but I actually find that by using the exposure, I can get a bit more of a visual of what I'm working on, rather than having like red everywhere. Do you know what I mean? So that's just me. You can do what works for you, but this is what works for me. Okay, now the reason I don't have to be overly careful about this is that we're not doing any drastic changes like this. So I'm going to bring that exposure down now. And what I really want to do is reduce the clarity. I'm going to reduce the haze. So I'm going to dehaze, just sliding that down a little bit. Reduce the texture. And put a little bit of exposure on just to help us in our next stage. And that's looking not too bad. I'm going to just fix up this line here. I'm not too happy about that. So let's come to erase. We're going to open up And we're just going to soften that edge there. Feels a little bit too much there. Softening that up. That looks better. So let's do a before and after. See how that has just lightened everything and softened it without like really making a change that's too drastic. But it's going to allow us to do some modifications later. I might even just warm it up a bit. This is a great time to warm it up a bit because we are going to be going yellow. So if I warm that up a little bit. Yes. There we go. All right. I'm going to just bring that exposure down a little bit, just a touch, because I've got some issues happening here, but we're going to fix that bit later anyway. So when you know what it is that what your end result is going to be, you can sort of make your changes a little bit by little bit. Okay, so I want to bring up the shadows. So I'm going to come in and bring up the shadows across the whole image. Now we can work on bringing down the highlights overall, bring up a little bit of contrast. Let's just see where the issues are here. Do that and bring up the shadows just a little bit more. This helps us to brighten things up a bit. And I'm going to bring down the blacks a little bit because we've lost a little bit of our detail. Okay, so now I've got quite sharp eyes here, which is great. This is a shallow depth, it's only 2.8 with a 90mm, so it captured her eyes beautifully, but I'm going to come in and sharpen them up even further. So I learned this somewhere a long time ago and I've stuck with it and it works every time. I bring my sharpening up to around about 90. I bring my masking up to around about 50 and my luminance, depending on how noisy it is, and this one isn't actually noisy, so I'm not going to do it, but I will bring it no more than like 20, and especially with dogs, because I'll show you, see here how it's really softened her coat. If I bring that back, oh, it's still soft, but it's not, it can override your beautiful detail that you want in the fur and everything. So you just want to be mindful of that. Now that I'm up close, I'm seeing that this doesn't look too good. So I'm just going to come in and just grab that. Let's get our mask, our brush, and I'm going to just soften a little bit of this. Actually, I'm going to come in here. Just going to soften a little bit of this in Erase. Okay, come across to the other side and back into here and on the brush, and we'll just soften this over here. That's better. Oh dear. All right. Okay, done. Now let's zoom out. Looking beautiful. I do have, see what I've created? I've got this tiny little halo around here. So we've got to get rid of that. All right, let's go back into here. We'll go to here. I'm going to go to brush. And so now I'm adding. And I just want to add it to that where I've already got that glow from the backlight. And this will help us later. So a little bit of work now will help you later. Okay. And see, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you don't want a halo. There we go. Do-do-do-do. Oh, that looks nice. Lovely. So you needed that tiny little bit of a fix-up. Oh, look, you can just see a bit of a halo here. So let's do that again. We'll select that, come into the brush. I'm just gonna, you can just see a bit of a halo there. And I'm gonna just undo that a little bit. So I'm gonna come in with my erase and just on the edge, we're softening that edge there. Oops, too soft, too much. So, whoops. Whoops, 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 whoops. Okay, brush. All right, let's just, I think that looks okay. And let's zoom out. I'll have to fix that a little bit later when I'm in Photoshop. Okay, so overall, I think that's not too bad. Okay, let's go. So we finished in here for the moment, and we're gonna go and head over to Photoshop. So edit in Photoshop. Here we are. All right, so I'm going to duplicate my layer. So I've just got a base to begin with. And the first things we're gonna do is some tidy up. So into the eyes, I'm gonna come in with the healing tool, and I've found with the healing tool, you don't want to just dab it. You want to do a bit of a line, and it seems to do a better job. That was too big. So a bit of a line there, and a bit of a line there. Now, I know that these little dots here are a scar that she is currently healing from putting her nose everywhere. So I'm just gonna tidy those up a little bit. And I've got this little mess of a thing happening here. That's pretty good. That hides it. I'm going to leave that flower there. I ummed and ahed over it, but I will leave it for the moment. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to hide this here. So I'm going to grab something from over here and we're going to put it over here. So let's start with that. I'm just going to grab, I think it'll be safer to grab some of this here. So let's just do this. So all I did was copy, and I'm going to take it over here. I'm going to work out, I'm going to even just resize it, because we are doing a whole big soft thing anyway. I'm going to flip it. Oh, yep, I think that'll work for us. All right, there we go. I'm going to add a mask. Come in with my brush, nice and big, and we need a soft one. So here we go. Get rid of that. Get rid of this edge here. So, and then I'm going to just working out what it is that I want to keep here. That looks pretty good. Oops. So another thing, I want to get rid of this big green, and I've got like an orange thing over here. So at this point, I am just going to add a new layer, come in with this stamping tool, and I'm going to go and select something around about here. looks pretty good. I'm going to tidy this up just here. Like so. And that, so far, managed to, there we go. All right, next, I'm going to flatten those. Oops. So we've just made those minor changes there. And that looks pretty good. Okay, so the thing is that this we want to sort of be more of a yellow color. So what I'm going to do is come in and grab this section here like this. I'm going to Control C and paste it. And then we are going to transform it. We're going to bring it like so. I'm going to come up and go to filter. Wait, I'm going to say yes to that. I'm going to come up to filter. I'm going to go into blur, and that is good. It depends on the actual resolution of your image of what you'll want your blur to be, but we're looking for it to be quite blurry. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this. We'll flip it. Throw it over this way. Okay, and we'll just come and grab stamping tool and add a little bit extra. Let's just throw a few other things around to like that. And now we're going to come in and we're going to bring the opacity down like so. And I might even make it a little bit more yellow. So I'm going to do Command or Control and hit that so that I unhit the layer, and that allows me to select everything that is on that layer, and I'm going to do an adjustment. So I'm going to come in and we're going to do a hue saturation, and I'm just going to see if I can get that color to be more of a yellow. All right, so we're going to have to do a colorize. We'll bring in the yellow that I want. I'm going to have to bring the saturation up by the looks. So bring in the sort of yellow that I want. I'm going to bring the brightness right up. Okay. And if we bring that opacity right down, we've got a little bit more of that yellow in there. So it's just given it a little bit of an edge. Okay. Like so. All right, next thing is we want to select the subject. So we're going to go up to our select tool and go to select and select subject. Pretty good. We're going to come up here and we're going to add, actually we're going to invert it. So we're going to select inverse, and then we're going to add our mask, and it's done not too bad of a job. I'm going to soften that background a little bit more. You can see we're already getting close to, and we've got to do all of our brightness changes and add all of our other stuff first, but we're getting closer. And so I want to get some of my details back here, so I'm going to come into the mask, and I got black, yes. So So I'm going to bring my opacity down to around about 40% and just try and get some of this detail of her hair back without getting too much of a halo. We've lost that glow around the edge there in this selection, but we're going to soften it up and get that back. This can take a little bit of time, but it's worth it. And you want to be careful you don't have these hard jagged edges. So that's why this is a good stage, just to soften it up. And I am using a Wacom, which makes this a lot easier. You mainly only have to go to this type of detail when you've got like the light reflection here on a dark background. So when you're trying to change it to a lighter background, it sort of requires this extra time and effort. That's Lexie getting into her bed, if you could hear that. Part of me feels like I'm not doing anything. It's so funny. I'm going to turn the opacity up a little bit here. Okay, let's have a look what that looks like. Zoom out. Yeah, that looks better. So, how good does that look, guys? Yes. All right, so I do want to just get her whiskers back here. So I'm going to get my brush and I'm going to throw it up to 100%. Come in really soft. Bring these whiskers back. Just going to check on this side. Yep. And that's all good. Fit on screen, that looks better. Okay, happy with that. Now we can move on to the next stage. So I am a fan of actions. I have made a few of my own, but I am fully in love with the Greater Than Gatsby range of actions. And in particular, I am a fan of their Innocence collection and their Painterly collection, Painterly Portrait. However, they have recently come out with, a couple of months ago, they've come out with an animal collection, and I hear that is really good. But because I'm happy with the ones that I've got, I haven't gone and invested in those. But if you don't have any, I highly recommend going and checking those out. And I will have a link to that in the bottom, in the description. So, but what I do love to do is work on the eyes. So in the Innocence Retouch, there is a selection for doing the eyes, but I have gone and made my own little action here because I know the ones that I play. So I'm just going to play those now. And so then they will all be there, ready for me to go. So for me, I come right in. I'm going to start with the base foundation. Just go right over the eye. And I do have it at 100% opacity. And then I'm going to come in with the enhanced brightness, and I just like to add, it depends on where you need to add your brightness. And then I'd like to darken the iris. And sometimes I'll add a little bit of depth just around, and it's amazing the difference that it makes. So if I just even turn that on and off, just see the difference that that makes. And then a little bit on the reflection, and I'm going to bring that right down. I can already see that was just way too much. And then I also do a little sharpen, just a tap tap over the eyes, and let's have a look at what that actually looks like. I'm going to have to remove that background first, and then I'll show you what that looks like on and off. See how it's just taken them to a whole new level, but you need to be careful you don't go over the top. So what we're going to do is zoom out, because sometimes it can make it look like they're a ghost or unworldly. See, that is a little bit too much. So, and sometimes you need to even walk away from your project when you do something like this. I'm going to bring down the foundation. I'm also going to bring down the sharpen. It's amazing how much brighter that can make it. And I feel like the shape light is still a little bit too much. So let's try that and see if it still looks natural. I'm happier with that. I do think that the enhanced brightness is probably a little bit too much, so let's bring that one down. And look, and it's all on your own judgment. So yeah, that looks better. Still feel like it's a little bit off. Maybe I need to bring down the darkness a bit. Yeah, that looks more natural. All right, so it just gives it, and you only want it to do a little bit of a pop, like just enough to help them stand out, because that's what we're featuring. We're featuring the eyes, you know, we want to grab people's attention and they go straight to the eyes and then they look at the whole image. So we put that background back in. Looks good. Okay, so at this point, because I've got a lot of other stuff to do to it, we're just gonna flatten it. I'm still keeping merge layers. I'm still keeping my background. So if we see from the background to that, pretty good change. It looks pretty good, don't you reckon? All right, so because I still do absolutely love using the Greater Than Gatsby actions, I am now going to come in and do this. So what this is like, it's a gradient color, and I just use this one because it saves me having to go and create a new gradient and do all of that. So I'm going to click continue. So it's just a gradient fill here. They've already got it all set up. I can go and change the color if I want, but I particularly like this color all the time. So I'm just going to come in, I'm going to add, I actually should have done this before. So let's just quickly, before I do this, I'm going to undo what I just, the flatten, hopefully, yep, okay. I'm going to do this at this point. Let's do that again. 1, 2, 3, play. Okay, click continue, and I'll show you why. I made a mistake there. So, sorry, fit on screen, zoom out. Why did you not allow me to move that? Okay, so if you accidentally don't move it, all you need to do is double click it again, and you need this screen open when you're moving. So I'm going to move this around. I want this to be a feature up here. I think I'm going to put it right behind her actually. Click OK. And the reason that I had to hit the back buttons because I actually want to use this mask here to mask the Control Z. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to come in and mask. I I need to go around the other way. Whoops. Select, inverse, come in, mask her out, and unselect. I want to mask all of this here. Okay, come in. I want to come back into the white mask. So, and here, I don't mind if it goes a little bit over her. So it's going to come, because we're going to reduce the opacity. I'm leaving it as it is at the moment so that I can see where I'm going. And we can make changes later, so it's not a big deal. All right, come back with my black, and we're just going to soften this edge here. All right, fit on the screen, zoom out. I'm going to reduce the opacity. And really, we're just trying to make her head to really stand out from that background. So see how that has made a huge difference. And we're going to add a vignette and everything, but that in itself really does help to stand out that little bit more. Okay, next up, we are going to we will flatten it. So I'm going to come in and flatten that. And now we are going to, actually I'm going to Control Z that. I should say Command Z. I've moved to a Mac from being on a Windows machine for like my whole life. And so here I am saying keys, but I'm using the new keys that I need to say Command Z, not Control Z. So if you're listening on a Mac, I'm sorry. Okay, so what was I about to do? Yes, so I was going to come in and go to history and do a snapshot. So this time, if I need to go back and grab something, I can go to my snapshot. So this is the first one when we opened up, and this is what we're up to now. So now I'm going to flatten the whole thing. And we're going to go into actions, and we are going to go to my favorite, which is the matte soft pearl. I'm going to click play on that. And I like how it sort of like gives certain areas, it gives the whole image as like a flatter image across, but I'm obviously going to remove a lot of it. So I'm going to come in and we're going to remove it from our beautiful doggy here, little Miss Lexie. And I want to remove it from the front because I want the detail in the front. And you see how it just gives it that little bit of an extra glow at the back and a softness, and just, it's just nice. So next, I'm going to come in and I'm going to go straight to adding a vignette for the moment. And I found the vignettes in the portrait collection too are beautiful. So the one that I want is I think it's the Wilderness that I liked. I'm going to come in and check that. Yes. So then we're going to come in with, on our mask, we're going to come in and mask the doggy. We're going to mask off our nice highlight at the top. We're going to bring in this beautiful one. See how the way that the flowers are on a curve here? We're going to keep that sort of, I'm going to come back and add a little bit more back into this corner up here. Doesn't that look pretty? Really just sort of helps to focus in on there. And I'm not going to stop there. We're going to add another vignette. We're going to add the Super Death vignette. Press play on that. But again, we're going to take it all off. What am I? Okay, wrong color, that's all. I'm going to take it all off the middle. Like so. You got to be careful though. So I'm going to really bring this right down because I don't want it to be over the top. I'm just adding a tiny little bit more of a layer, you know, just a little bit. And I don't want it at the top actually. I know it seems like the smallest amount, but in my mind it's like adding a little bit more. Oh, okay. So I'm going to come in and we're going to make a little adjustment here. I feel like I've taken away too much of the brightness. So I'm just going to come in, add in some brightness. That looks nice. See, it just gives it that little bit of a crisp touch. Just a little bit. And that's the thing with editing photos. When you're going to this type of detail and going to this type of, you know, you're putting this amount of effort in, remember to do tiny edits as you go. Doesn't matter how many layers and how many sort of little changes that you make, it helps to not go overboard. And sometimes you have to walk away and go, and you'll come back and you're like, oh my goodness, you know. I've posted images before and I've gone, oh my goodness, you know, I'll come back the next day and I'm looking at it, I'm like, what were you thinking? So that can happen, but if you do little increments, it can, you can find that you're not going to go overboard. Well, that's just how that works for me. So also, I suppose if you keep on doing little increments as well, if you go back to your original and you see, but yeah, anyway, in my opinion, what works for me is to do little increments at a time. I'm really, really liking this. It does need some contrast. I'm going to actually use their contrast action in the Innocence collection, which is where? Here. Here. Where are you? Oh, here. There we go. I'm going to hit play on that. That looks nice. Too much though, so I'm going to bring that right down. Yeah, that's good. See, that sort of brings back that bright yellow and green color that we have in the other image. So if we go back to the other image here and have a look at what we've got happening here, I think we're getting pretty close. So if we go to that and we go to that, are we missing, is it a bit more yellow in the background, isn't it? But I like what we've got at the same time. I think this looks soft and sweet. All right, I'm actually really quite happy with this. I'm going to flatten this. And I'm going to take a little snapshot and I'm going to show you I'll just move this for you. So I'm going to show you the before and the after. Pretty nice. Pretty nice. And I don't think it's too hard. I think it's not too hard to do. I mean, there's a little bit of the masking stuff, but like if I show you close in, like see how by just slowly using a 40% opacity on your brush and having a nice soft brush, you can get that edge quite okay without having a halo around it. And that's the most important thing. You don't want to have a halo around the dog's head. Obviously, if the image is sharp around the head and you've got like, you know, sharp details of fur and that's a little bit harder. But if the main focus is the eyes and then the focus drops, it's a lot easier to do this style of editing. That looks great. Look at her eyes there. It looks fantastic. Okay. Of course, you want to do that. Fit on screen, zoom out. Pretty happy with that. So the next thing of what I do is, because this is the full size image, I'm just going to save that, and it's going to take it back to Lightroom. So I'm letting that save, and we go back to Lightroom, and you can see from here. So what I'm going to do is where are you? Create a virtual copy, and I'm going to reset that. So that is the out of camera original image, and we have just turned it into that. How good is that? So we've gone from that to those changes in Lightroom to those changes in Photoshop. And I think it's just so special. Like, and if you have this type of idea in mind when you go out to photograph, it makes it easier for you to choose destinations like this, that you've got these backgrounds that you know, okay, it's okay. I'm not too stressed about that because that is going to be my final result. That is what I'm aiming for. So if you wanted to go and now save this and put it on display on the internet, a trick that I do is I go to image mode and I go to 8-bits channel. I always edit in RGB anyway. And because a lot of the labs will prefer RGB, but you need to talk to your lab that you get your photos printed at, because they may prefer a different color profile. So for example, if I wanted to convert to a profile, so at the moment I'm in Adobe RGB 1998, but you might have a lab that prefers like Pro Photo RGB or another type of thing. So every single printer has its own preferred color profile. So, and most professional labs will give you an idea, or give you like a profile of what you should set up your output as. Anyway, we are doing this for the internet. So what I do is I change my mode to 8-bits, and I'm going to, I've got in my library, I've got my signature. I'm going to bring that in and position that where I want it. And I'm thinking around about here will do nicely. And then I'm going to go to File, Export, Export As. And I found the best settings for Facebook especially, and it works really well on Instagram as well. Let's see, I want JPEG. I want to have it great. Is the longest edge to be 2052 pixels. I know it sounds weird, but I have found that to be, I read that some time ago and I found that to be the best output for the internet. So, and then I always embed the color profile, and I'm going to hit export, and I'm going to save it to my, that's where I want it saved. Click save, and now I will be able to upload that to the internet. And then of course I don't want to save this, so I'm going to just close it, don't save, and go back into Lightroom, and I've still got my high res edit sitting in Lightroom, so ready for me to do whatever settings I need to use to export it to a printer. So there you go. I hope that has been of some help to you, and I would love to see you do some edits like this as well. If you have any questions, please do ask in the comments and I will do my best to answer. And if you have any requests, if you would like me to talk about anything else in more detail, please let me know in the comments below. And if you have not subscribed and you enjoyed this video, it helps me out if you hit the like button and hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss my future videos. So, and I will leave you with that and say bye for now, and I hope you have a wonderful day.